Right, so after you've downloaded the Python interpreter 3.2.3 for Windows, this is Windows centric since the majority of the class seems to be using Windows. And once it's installed, you click on Start. You're going to go, I wouldn't click on that one right away, or you can try it. It's the command line version, which is like a DOS prompt, but that's not the one we're looking for. So if you get that black screen one, that's not the one that you want. You want to go to All Programs, Python 3.2, and you want to come down to Idle. Idle is the Python Graphical User Interface Integrated Development Environment, or IDE. Right, when it first starts up, you'll notice here the Python string Python 3.2.3, which is the version of Python currently compiled for this shell, right? And what you have is the Python prompt, just like you've seen in the book. So from here, you could type in, and I would suggest this actually. There's nothing wrong with this. Take the code listings that are in the book and type them in verbatim. That's actually a really good way of learning any kind of language or any computer languages, to find a pattern that works, find something that works first, and just copy it. And once you've practiced a few times doing that, where you're comfortable, because if you type things in wrong, you're going to get syntax errors. If you type things in wrong, you could possibly get, if it's syntactically correct, but you typed it in wrong, you might end up with logic errors. Your program isn't going to produce the correct output. So if you look over on page 39, code listing 1.1, I could type every one of those lines in at this interpreter, right? So starting first with import, I'm not going to, I'm not going to type the whole thing, but you can probably get the idea what I'm talking about. I can just, I'm copying right now everything that I'm seeing in the textbook, and I'll just stop with this line right here because I think you get the idea of what I'm talking about in entering the program at the command prompt, right? But you don't do that with Python programs. You have to write text files. Text files are files that a text editor can look at and read and write to. If you remember, or maybe you've heard this term ASCII before, the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, that is a text file, and Python needs a text file in order to have a working program. So here's an executable line right there, so let's just go ahead and I'll enter 2. Doesn't really do anything, it just stored that into the variable called radius string you see here. What you're going to want to do for all of the programs from here on out is to click on File, New, because what you're wanting to open is a file editor, and a text editor. This is a text editor in Python, and it does syntax highlighting. It's actually not a bad little editor. And it's here that you're going to write out your code. And I am copying verbatim what is in the text. Okay, so you get the idea. You type in the whole thing. Now, later, I'm going to actually talk about some techniques in programming, some things that you probably don't want to do. And one of the things you don't want to do is type in all 15 lines of a program all at once, and then hit the, well, actually 15 is not that bad, but later when we get to 25, 30, 50 line programs, or 100 lines, or 150 lines, it's probably not a good idea to type in 150 lines and then try to run it and expect it to run. you make small incremental changes to your code. You don't type in everything all at once and then expect it to run, because you're gonna set yourself up for frustration. I'm gonna just move this one off to the side, because we've already done this code listing one. I've actually typed it up, so rather than bore you with watching me type, which is probably a painful process, why don't we just go ahead and look at the code as it's been written, right? So this is the circumference program, code listing 1.1 on page 39, and you notice I've got most of the lines in there. I want to show you something though. Well, okay. First of all, let's show it to you successfully running. The way you run a Python program in idle is to either click on Run and Run Module, or press the F5 key. And when you do that, if your program successfully byte compiled and now is running, it's going to bring up the Python shell, and it's actually going to run your program. So if I enter 2, it's going to tell me the circumference is 12.56 and the area is 12.56. That's actually wrong. Well, no. No, it isn't. Okay, it seems that it works okay with 2. We might just kind of move this out of the way, and we'll run this again. Here we're testing this. We're going to test it with a few different values. So I'm going to enter 3, and yes, indeed, look, I've got 18.84 for the circumference, and the area is 28.27. So we've seen something that's kind of interesting. When the radius of a circle is 2, then the circumference and the area are equal, right? Okay, so that's a successfully running program. You've got your source code here, and you have your shell over here. This is where the program runs. It runs inside the Python shell. Okay, so over here again, let's say and I did this actually when I was typing this in, I misspelled circumference and I put an E in here instead. When you go to run your program and you've made changes, I want you to notice there's a little asterisk right there after the PY. That means that you've made a change to your code. It's not written out yet. What's nice about an integrated development environment like idle is that when I go to run, it's going to ask me first if I want to save the file that I just worked on. I'm going to say OK, and then I'm going to run it. And yes, okay, so you notice it's spelled wrong, right? But it's still going to run. This is the difference between a compiled language and an interpreted language. Python is an interpreted language. It's not going to know the mistake has happened until you get there, right? Until you actually get to that line. So I'm going to enter the radius as 3, and look what happens. Ooh, it comes out in red too, and that's an error. That's actually a syntax error in Python. And the reason is because I misspelled circumference. It's looking for the circumference, this one up here that I defined as being 2 times math.pi times radius n. It's been named already, and if I'm going to get the value that the thing that's on the right here that got put into the thing on the left, if I'm going to get the value of that thing on the left, I'm going to make sure I have to spell it correctly throughout the duration of my program. Alright, so I just go back and we'll fix that error by typing in the right letter. So I'm going to run it again, and since I made a change, it's going to ask me if I want to save it. And so now I enter the radius, and there you go. It's actually going to give you the results that you want. So just as a reminder, or to reiterate, there's nothing wrong with taking existing code and typing it in, like what you see on page 39 in the text. I would recommend doing that as you're getting used to, if you've first started coding, if you've never written computer code before, you're going to experience the joy of what it takes to have something that at least is syntactically perfect in order for the Python interpreter to actually do its job. So I'll see you again in future videos. Thank you.